Welcome to Debt to Cinema. I'm Stephen Maltmanex.
And I'm Brian Gillis. Like most people, we love going to the theater and catching latest releases. However, we sadly put a big dent in your wallet.
Fortunately, living in the digital age makes the viewing possibilities endless from the comforts of home.
Many of these films that you can see right from your couch, we're ashamed to say we miss, despite labeling ourselves cinephiles.
So join us as one or both of us cross off a title from our list of shame.
It can be an all-time essential classic,
Or an underrated piece of cinema that's worth giving a shot.
hell, it might just be some trashy film we want the other's opinion on. So sit tight and join us as we pay off our debts, $1 at a time.
The very first title card that you see on this, right after the studio credits, it says, "This film is in sign language. There are no translations, no subtitles, and no voiceovers." So if you're wondering right after our pre-recorded intro why there is no music in the background, no trailer clip with some dialogue or anything, that's because there's none of that in this movie. It's just ambience that you're hearing right now. And I mean, yeah, I've been wanting to get experimental for a while just on some things, and I still got a few up my sleeve. But yeah, this is one of them, and here we are.
Yeah, no dialogue. There is ADR, well, not ADR, but there's Foley being done.
Oh yeah,
but
it's still essential.
it's ambience. There's no music, no score. There's nothing, and even more than that, it's a series of long takes. I think there's only like 30, 32 different shots that compile the film, and maybe 5 locations, 6. Most of them are reused, and yet it's 2 hours and 20 minutes and doesn't drag, which is really, it drags here or there, but it's really marvelous. Like,
It's proof for sure, which is one thing that never, for whatever reason, we always praise this whenever there's some reaffirmation of like, oh no, you can do a long continuous take or little things like that. Or, hey, cinema can be this. It's always interesting to watch just action happening on screen. I'm not talking about explosions or something, but seeing a situation and just seeing it unfolding before you, that is always going to be interesting no matter what it is. So, of course, yeah, just to prove a point of something like this still being cinematic and interesting to watch, like I feel like, yeah, that's easy praise just to say right out of the way and get it out of the way. But
that was proven about 100 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't have sound in film for quite some time, and it was still, a very popular medium. It's
this
more
is probably the
impressive.
truest example of a very universal film because there's nothing.
I wouldn't call this universal.
No, no,
a
no,
lot
no,
of
no,
people
no,
won't
no,
like
no, no.
this.
No. I mean it like this, and that everybody in the world that watches this
can understand it.
is
There's
going
no-
to
there's no
see the
language
same
barrier.
exact thing. Like there's no
Yeah.
language barrier. There's no subtitles that might change the context. There might not be a dub track that has you hear certain things differently. It's like, no, they are going to see the same exact version of something unless somebody somewhere else typed up some subtitles or whatever,
When I started my copy on Netflix, it actually had subtitles. I was like, hold the fuck up.
What?
And I had to turn them off.
Are you kidding me?
No, I turned them
They
off
put
immediately.
subtitles on them.
It was closed captions, which makes sense, but not really.
But they
because if
translated
someone,
what they
yeah,
were signing?
Think about it. No, I don't know. Like I said, I turned it off immediately. So it's
Okay.
closed captioning. So I have to assume that, closed captioning is made for people that are deaf. So what's the point for closed captions on a movie featuring and starring only deaf people and there's no language? So I kind of want to put it back on and
it's
see
not like
if there
they
is
need
shit.
to hear a sound happening
It's
in
like
the background. Or anything.
tire
There's not a
squeal.
moment here where a character has to turn around to something that happens off camera and
It's like
react to it. Like, you
Netflix
see,
doesn't know these things. The people that get paid by Netflix, they're fucking slaves. They just sit in rooms and type up synopses and write the dialogue and stuff down. I don't know. I am curious though. Like I said, I want to go back
This
when we're
is
done
one of those
recording and find
underground
out.
titles that you can discover on there. So like,
I wouldn't have found
really,
it.
like, can they not?
I love the Netflix game. Everyone loves it, where you just go on there. You don't even watch a movie. You just go through all the menus and find stuff. And like, oh yeah, that's my cue. I've seen that. Let me rate it 3 stars. I do that all the time. I'd never seen this. I'd never heard of this until I think it was it 2 cents? I want to say it was, like you mentioned it like a week or two ago. And I was like, what's that, huh? And I made that quip. I was like, there better be sex in it. And you're like, oh, you haven't seen the poster? I was like, no, I haven't seen the fucking poster. You're like, trust me, there's sex. I was like, okay.
Yeah, I remember seeing the trailer a few times at the art house theater that was close to me. I think 2 years ago. Like, I think it was right after I graduated. at some point. So I knew I heard about it and I knew what the basic idea behind it was, but then I never saw what theater it came out to, so I never got a chance to see it. But it was always on the back of my mind, and so yeah, I finally got it out of the way.
In the minor research I did, it's like, yeah, this is on a whole bunch of top 10 lists. It's claimed as like one of the best movies of the 21st century. It was like basically bullshit that it didn't get the pick from Ukraine to be in the foreign film selection for the Oscars
Because some other one,
yeah,
they
I don't
pushed
know.
for it.
I don't know what the guide is, but it can't be as good as this is.
Well, it was kind of like, with Elle in France or whatever. I don't know. France nominated some other flick for.
Yeah. It's
To
always
push for it. It always ends up being the case. Like Let the Right One In was one of the ones where that happened.
I think what it probably is, especially in the case of this film and in Elle, maybe a country doesn't want a film with certain kind of content being on the biggest like filmic stage for the entire world to see. And for this one, it really makes sense. Because like I said, if you're squeamish and you don't like violence, or better yet, if you don't like blood or just stuff that makes your skin crawl, you're gonna hate this fucking movie. Like we did Mean Streets not too long ago. This is basically the Eastern European Mean Streets without dialogue.
Oh, it's so much worse than that too. I mean,
yeah, well, because
this is in boarding school.
It's like that's the crazy part.
These are teenagers.
I don't get it. Like I praise Victoria big time, both when we did our top of 2015 list, and then also in our Death Cinema pick, when I watched it for whether it was dollar reviews or 2 cents when I talked about it. So like 3 different times, I was talking about Victoria. Oh, I love it. It's like, it's not even like a movie. It's like life. No, that's still a movie. This is not a movie at all. I don't know what this is. This feels...
There is a narrative there.
No, there's totally a narrative, but it doesn't feel like a movie. Like, it doesn't feel like cinema. Like, it feels real in a lot of different ways, between the unsimulated, or I would assume unsimulated sex, the violence, even if the fight choreography is kind of shitty in certain cases, like when they actually have like their brawl to bring them into the gang. It
is pretty raw, I think. The first one, which is kind of an initiation moment.
Yeah, that initiation fight looked like they were dancing, like pretty shitty. But everything outside of that one,
honestly, like raw fights do not look that pretty. They really don't.
I'm not talking about being pretty or not pretty. I'm saying that this looked like they were like, okay, now you hit me, now I spin, and now we all hit you. Like they practiced
they were all
it.
just kind of. There were 3 of them against one, and they were. I mean, the one kid on his own, which we don't have character names, but
his name's Sergey.
How do you know that?
The credits, they all have names. Oh, that's right. You don't watch credits.
Oh, right. Yeah. No. Yeah. No, that's the first thing you see.
I don't know why.
Well, no, I don't know. Maybe it could have been out of order, but it's not.
It's Sergey.
How do you know who's who?
Because he's the star of the movie. The movie
he's
starts
the top
with him.
one, sure, but
he is the fish out of
right?
water. He's the one that gets initialized. He is.
And
how
do you know everybody else's name according to the credits? It's
I can.
I don't know. They have character names. I'm sure they all know who they're supposed to be.
He's the protagonist. His prostitute girlfriend is the second lead, and then her friend would be the other girl. So it's like Svetlana and Anya. So Anya, I think, is the blonde, and Svetlana is the one with the greasy hair that never bathes. But no, this is not a movie.
Well, the way that you're describing it, this is what I would.
This feels like a documentary almost. Like
it's the raw nature of it, which is
eerie.
It's a compliment to the film, but this is one of those examples where. I mean, you said you went as far as to say not cinema. I would say that this is what's commonly referred to as pure cinema. Something that can only be achieved through film.
No,
which
okay, for instance,
in this sense,
we did Camera Person just like whenever they're listening to it, it doesn't matter. But we did Camera Person not too long ago, and that's like it's a docu-memoir. It's a documentary about documentaries, or better yet, the people involved in making them, and that is 100% like. They're playing with you. You can see the editing at play, like trying to play with your emotions, like maybe using dialogue that didn't actually happen at the time, bullying, like all this stuff where like, this is fake. They're trying to make art here. Whereas this, it's just, I don't know if it's a combination between the subject matter. You never see films almost ever with deaf characters, let alone an entirely deaf cast. And they are actually deaf actors, which is even like crazier than that.
That's just part of the naturalism of it. Where I mean, the fight might not work for you, but it never felt false to me, especially at the level how hardcore this gets.
It was just
so
the first fight for me. The rest of the violence in particular, The abortion scene, no, does not feel fake.
Yeah.
Like I said, the sex doesn't seem fake.
Oh, yeah.
Like this is, in some ways, you could call this pornographic. Like it doesn't seem like a movie. Which is why it's such a brilliant piece of filmmaking. Like it's unsettling. Like I said, this might be universal in that anyone can watch it in terms of understanding it, like you said. But then to reiterate, yeah, no, this is not going to be for
It
everyone.
is not something that you market to the largest audience
yeah.
possible.
If
like,
you
when we get down to the ratings, I'm sure it's going to be said that you have to step into this bravely, like having some sort of self-discipline, because
Well,
I
it's
definitely
like-
don't think it's boring. But then,
it's-
of course, yes, there are moments where it does get to you, like you're watching long stretches of something happening and you're like, okay, I know the structure now. I get the basic point of this scene and what it's about, and I kind of know where it's going at this point.
Given that it doesn't throw you in the deep end, you get acclimated like to this world, to these characters, to the relationships and everything, that you're gonna know pretty like quickly if you like it or don't, and you probably won't stick with it like before the more gruesome stuff does occur. So it's not an issue. Like if I had it on Netflix, I didn't watch it yet. I just had like the picture on, so I was ready to do it. I saw the runtime. I was like, really? Like I already knew certain things about it. Like on
It's 2 hours and
Netflix,
10, I think, or maybe
it's
a little
still
less than that.
it's 2 hours is a lot when no one's talking. And
But then you stick with it, and then you see, like,
the funny thing on Netflix, when you look at, because I had to turn off the subtitles, like I said, for the audio track, it says no dialogue, stereo, no dialogue 5.1. And then it says, for subtitles, it says none, or it says closed captions. Like, I was looking at it, I laughed. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, how?
It's probably just the sounds typed up. I don't know. Like,
It's like, does 5.1 make a difference when it's mostly full lead audio anyway? Like,
well, yeah, no, because definitely, I don't know if you watch this with headphones, but
Yeah,
you
listen, I
definitely
had to
just
listen
get
with
the ambience,
headphones.
and the background noise. Like, I mean, just as far as paying attention to backgrounds, like
no,
that's mostly what this is.
I'd
It's
say-
backgrounds and Foley. It's not very heavy on effects, but there are some. But
like the first 10 minutes maybe, I wasn't using headphones and I was falling asleep even though I wasn't tired, and because a silent movie, like nothing's going on. You feel like you yourself are deaf as a viewer, and then with the headphones, like it's a little bit different. Like
I think it's integral. Like, it's not
Yeah, you
just
need
that
it.
you're visually getting a sense of the environment, but when you hear it, like that's part of, like
You
when
feel
we
like
think
a
awesome
fly on the
sound,
wall.
we think of spectacle and sound design and stuff. But like, no, the beauty of having backgrounds and like when you're in a dark room, it's part of the stuff that just like feeds into the sensations of giving you that feeling that you're there, and the fact that these are very long takes that feel very raw, and just like when they get heavy, it's very unnerving to watch, and that's because like you really can feel that environment, even though you're not really there. You're just sitting down watching it. You can hear it. You can see it. Maybe some stuff you just fill into it where you can almost smell it, but there's like, it definitely helps big time just giving you a sense of this place.
It's crazy that there's nothing about this story that's unique.
Aside from how it's told.
How
and
it's told, yeah.
In this world,
it's like
yeah.
we've all seen this story. It's it's almost like cliched. It's stereotypical. It's coming of age. It's a boarding school. It's about the bad things that that humans do, especially
It's
in
the
the
rise
younger
and
days.
fall in a gang. It's just
Uh-huh.
we've like to the level of how just mean this is, and like not in like a way that the movie is mean spirited, but just in like how fucking cruel this
Yeah.
world can be.
And yet, at the same time, you forgive that because well, unless you yourself are deaf, and then why would you be listening to a podcast? You've probably never seen something like this. Like I said, this is a part of the world. These are people. These are characters. These are humans that you just very, very rarely either interact with or see in person or on the screen. And if anything, I think the power of this film is the idea, like, why is that? I don't know what percentage of the population is either deaf or mute, but I would say it's like maybe like 1% or 0.5%. Like, it's a lot of people.
Well, the way that this school is set up is it's not just high school. There's little kids. It seems like it's from K to 12, and
You don't see a lot
based
of
on
them,
like
but yeah.
just that one classroom that you see them in when they're in geography. It's what, maybe 10 people in there max,
And then you
maybe
also,
12
yeah, well,
actually.
those are the older kids, but then, like, when you have that opening school ceremony, like, you have that kid on the shoulders, and then furthermore, when the main girl, when Sergei's girl does the pregnancy test, that, like, 13-year-old or whatever it is tries to walk in the bathroom, gets kicked out.
Yeah.
Which I thought was so weird. I was like, oh, there's only two girls in this movie. Oh, wait, nope, there's another one. Oh, she's gone. She's gone. Like, at
Yeah.
first I was confused. I was like, why are there even girls at this school? And then why do they
It's a
all
boarding school.
even still, but they all live like on the same floor of the dorm, and it's like they don't have like a separate wing. It's just like, oh, there it is, and yet they have a women's bathroom, which looked awesome, by the way. I'd never seen something like that. Like, I didn't know that was a thing. Like, I've heard about, bathrooms, especially like in India or Asia, where, India is Asia, where it's just like a hole in the ground and you squat and do your business. But the way that those like porcelain footholes or whatever it was for the shoes, like, that was really cool. Like, I like, it's not exactly production design because they just use what they had, and it's a very cheap budget. I would assume you don't have to pay like someone like a script supervisor or anything to make sure the dialogue is right. However, I did read that because the director does not know Ukrainian Sign Language, that they had an interpreter to make sure that they were following the script. But it's like, what script? Like, this script had to be like 5 pages, I would assume. Like, no, there's no dialogue. Like, that's what's so strange. Like, immediately my gut reaction when you're sitting there at the bus stop watching him try to get directions, you get this like kid. At first I was like, hey, it's like Ansel Elgort, like, you kind of look like him for me at a distance. I'm like, what am I watching right now? This is real boring. Am I really gonna watch 2 hours of no one talking when this was made just like 2 years ago? And it really sucks you in, especially not the henchman, but like, hey, I guess he kind of is the henchman. Like, the squirrely dude that first like brings Sergei into the group, who like signs really chaotically, like really quick, and he's always doing stuff like that, that, that. Like, that guy who like helped like makes him shake the dude upside down to take his coins. That guy, like, he was the one that got me interested. Like, if this was a Scorsese film, like, that'd be the character that Scorsese was playing himself. There's just something about him, like his energy on film, like he catches your eye. Like, he really
He's
is like
that asshole
chaotic, like
right away
kinetic.
that you
Yeah.
just it's
Well,
I
he's
mean
not
you
an
just
asshole right away.
no, but
Actually,
he just
he
seems
seems
like,
cool.
he seems like the guy that's all testosterone. Like, right when you get into that fight, he's just kind of like getting pumped up and he's showing off. He does the pull-ups right
No,
away.
no,
Just
no, no, not
he's
that guy. Not that guy. That's the guy that gets killed by the 18-wheeler. I'm talking about the guy with the black hair.
I
The
think that blonde. I thought that
no,
was him
not
that got
no.
killed by it for a second.
Yeah,
But then
that was
another
the
blonde
blonde
guy
guy.
showed
That
up
was the
that
blonde
looked
guy.
just like him.
No,
So
that's just because they're Ukrainian. I'm talking about the
well, that's
guy
very
with the
nice.
black hair who is when they're in the cafeteria
The
in
guy
the
that
beginning.
meets him for the first time and pulls
Yeah,
him
who
into
like
it. Okay,
spits
yeah.
in the asshole's sandwich or whatever,
Well, that
and
kid
then
apparently had Down syndrome,
whatever he has, he's an
which is
asshole. Okay,
really sad.
he stole Sergei's food without even knowing who he is.
It's weird though. Like, can you imagine that being a kid that has Down syndrome that is deaf? Like,
I wouldn't be an asshole, that's for sure.
it's Down syndrome, man. Like, I've met people like
Downs doesn't
that.
mean you're a dick. Like,
I've met enough people like that sadly act very dickish, and
anyway,
are
he
incredibly
deserved
selfish. I'm
he
not trying to
deserved
imply
getting hit
anything,
in the
but I'm
head
just
by
saying
that
in my
toilet
experience.
paper later in the film. Okay, that's all I'm saying. But
Yeah, but I still felt bad for him when he was crying there on the spot. Like, you
so
could tell he just wasn't all there, and like, it was sad, man.
the point is, I like the guy who spat in the down kid's food and then brings Sergey outside. He's like, "Show me that you're not wearing a wire. Show me that you're
Yeah.
cool." That guy. That's the guy that
Offers him a
really.
cigarette and everything.
Like, that's the dude where at first, like, he's the underling. Like, he's like the third in command, second in command. Like, he's not like barely on the ladder. He's the guy that gets other people interested in the gang. But he's the one, once you see him, once that interaction begins with him, there's just something about his body language, the way that he like presents himself on film, the way that he is captured, that like just kind of sucked me in. I was like, okay, now I'm interested. Like, it's also the fact that then you actually get brought into the story. Like, you're no longer in the introduction to the world. It's like, oh, I get it. This is a group of hooligans, and they're doing real fucked up things. They got a prostitution ring, and they're trying to get money on trains and robbing people and mugging
Yeah.
people, and it's like all of the ultraviolence shit from A Clockwork Orange, except not in a goofy
It's
way.
not stylized, and it's so
Well, it is
scary how real it
stylized
is.
though. Like the style is realism.
Well, no, but it doesn't feel like it's fabricated in a way, or it's
Yeah.
stylized for entertainment. This just is like, it is so. I mean, just like how many people that they rob, how many that they knock out. Even like when kids are going to the bathroom, like just one kid they randomly go up to and like, it's like,
Give me
hey,
your
give me your
watch.
money,
Give me
empty
your
your pockets,
ring.
empty
Yeah.
everything out, and then even just going as far as to turning him upside down just so they can get all the coins. It's like, they don't stop until they 100% like have everything. Even when a kid says, hey, that's all I got. It's just that process. It's like watching that unfold. It's insane. Like there's without any verbal communication, they're just very upfront about everything. It's not like you can enjoy it in a stylized way of something like Mean Streets or something where Robert De Niro is just trying to talk his way out of something like that. It does not exist in this. They don't give a shit. They just go for it, and it's fucking mean, man.
Like it almost does. Like when Sergey, I'm just gonna assume here you got nothing to go off of, but just in terms of body language and how he is throughout most of the film, between like the way he like kind of dresses and carries himself in the beginning, I need directions. Like he's a pushover. Like he walks all the way around the school. Like he shows up to the class and people are kind of making fun of him. He can't sit with anyone. He sits with the guy with Down syndrome. He gets his food spat on. Like
Well, he's the new guy. I mean, he
he's
didn't
the
strike
new
me.
guy.
He didn't strike me as 100% shy though.
No, not shy, but like
I
kind of
mean,
like a
he's
pushover
definitely
almost.
he is quiet and just like right when he's
Quiet.
brought into somebody and then he's off. Okay, yeah. Sorry, I'm relating it too much to my experience,
I
but
know
like
what you
there's
mean,
guys like that aren't deaf that are kind of
He's a
quiet
wallflower,
outsiders.
yeah.
Yeah, he seems like that, and it's like it's not like he's completely naive. Like he clearly had a cigarette before he was offered one, and he
Well,
just
they're-
kind of
they're in
he
Ukraine,
takes in
like-
whatever group of friends he can get. That's kind of what he ends up embracing. But then those end up being his roommates, so it's not so much that he's a pushover, but more he just gets sucked into this world. Like,
Well, what I was getting at though, he's just I think naive is the right term. Like it's
yeah,
more
but
so
he's young and impressionable, and like he had to adapt.
Yeah, I think he was sheltered because between just the way the romance goes of him presumably having to pay for his first form of intimacy.
Well, that's
like,
why I wouldn't call it a romance at all. Like
It
it's,
is a romance, though,
I
which
think
is weird. Like
I would say it's a first love, and it's a first love from his perspective because he gets sucked into it that seriously, but it's not a mutual thing at that point. I'm not so
at
sure
that
that
point,
it is a romance.
yeah, at that point it was not. However, after that first moment, after that transaction, she might have not liked that he pushed her into the truck and didn't want her to fuck someone else that night, But given, like, okay, the 69 scene, how she reacted to the pregnancy, the fact that it seemed like he kind of knew that she was going to get the abortion, what he went at lengths to get her more money, just like little things. Like, not that she loved him, but it seems like she had feelings for him. Like she enjoyed his company, especially at the end, like when she gets her Italian passport and the way that she like storms into the room to try to like tell the other guys, well, not tell, but get the other kids to stop, and they won't, and she gets pushed out the room. It just, I don't know. Like I said, it's not a romance, but maybe it's just they're comfortable with each other. They liked each other.
She can be nice to him, but like, I mean, especially with that first time, I don't think she was enjoying it at all, man. Like she's just laying there looking away from him, and then all of a sudden they change positions and she ends up, taking it from behind, which, I honestly, like, I thought that was probably because she didn't want to see his face. And that was, one time that you see her in the van was just so that she didn't have to look at whoever it was.
When they started
I saw
having
that into it.
sex that first time, he tried to begin everything. Like, she just wanted to give him a blowjob. And then he tried to begin everything by kissing her, and she was like, no, that's not happening. No way. And he's like, well, can I take my clothes off? And she's like, yo, fine, okay. And they do that, and then, they're doing missionary for a while, and then, yeah, doggy, and then, like, kind of like laying down doggy. And when it's all over, when, like, she clearly climaxes, he obviously does inside her, and then they start making out. Like, she wants to kiss him.
But it's just pure pleasure at that point, though. I'm not so much convinced that it's because of... I'm not so sure that there are emotions in there.
She's turning tricks, okay? She's got lots of John. She's going to the same truck depot, like, night after night, making money for this gang, okay? And like even fucking the one dude that dies, the guy that gets run over, and yet, or I think it's the guy. It's hard to tell because they don't have names, they don't talk, and you just see signing, and yet, because their intimacies outside of the final time they have sex, which she doesn't want because she just had an abortion.
No, it's a full-on rape.
Yeah, it's not rape.
It's a rape. It was not consensual. That was rape.
Maybe not consensual, but given that you can't say no, like, how do you really read into that kind of scene? And I wasn't uncomfortable during the sequence either. But
I was, because it was at the level that Sergei, like, just how he was just pushing it and becoming a really unlikable little shit at that point, which
he just had
which sucks.
I would assume. Look, just think about all the shit that he's just gone through.
Yeah, no. I totally see where
how
he
out
got
of the
there.
gang.
I'm just saying.
He got kicked out of the gang, kicked out of his room. He has to sleep with the guy that has Downs now. No one talks to him, especially the girl that he has feelings for. He goes and basically, like, he didn't kill him, but used a weapon that his woodshop teacher taught him how to make to knock him out, robbed him for all the money he has.
I see how he
gives
grew
it to this
into
girl.
that.
Like, he doesn't even know any better. Like, he assumes, oh, you fuck people for money, I'm gonna give you more money than you've ever seen in your life. Take it. And like, the next day or 2 days after that or whatever it is, after the assumed rape, she wants to stop the other guys from kicking his ass, even though he just destroyed her passport that she worked really hard to get. Like, if it was rape, if
like
she didn't have feelings for him,
she's pissed off at him. But I mean, it's not like she wants to see him get killed. Like,
he wasn't gonna get killed. They weren't gonna kill him.
I was worried that they did for a second when that bottle breaks.
Yeah,
and
that
was
was
like
wine.
the blood just came in there, and I was like,
I think that was wine. Because I thought he was dead too.
As an effect, yes. But then right when that happened, and then he's just laying there, with his head in the sink, and there's water filled. It's like, how do you come back from that? You're not breathing because your head's in the water, and he's just completely out of it at that point, and he's bleeding out of his head.
They might have left him for dead, and that explains where he goes and does the next thing.
Yeah, I was wondering for some point after that if that was going to be like some sort of dream sequence, if that was going to pull some bullshit, but then, nope.
Very real.
Not at all.
Very real. Before we get there, I've talked about the abortion like 3 or 4 times now.
Oh, my God. You know what? I'm sorry, but after doing The Fly somewhat recently, oh, my God, that is nothing.
It's nothing, right?
This is like, nothing. Seriously, like, I will never forget that, like,
it's the most unsettling.
My head was facing the screen, but my eyes were just kind of darting away whenever they could. It didn't make any fucking difference, though, because I had headphones on. I could hear the fucking thing the whole time, and God damn it, that was killing me. Just those fucking yells, man.
I remember Prometheus and everyone talking about that abortion sequence, right?
That one's horrifying for that movie,
that was
but
pretty
because
bad.
For what this is, this is not sci-fi.
Like,
this is something that feels so raw and so natural, and like it really feels real and visceral while you're watching it. And then you're just sitting there going like, "Wow, I don't think it can get much more raw than this." No, oh my fucking God, dude!
I still haven't seen.
Props
4
to her
months.
for acting that out. Holy shit!
No, like I said, it seemed like it was fucking real. The whole movie.
It was scary, real, man.
That scene in particular seems not acting. But yeah, 4 months, 3 weeks, and 2 days. I know that's also about abortions in some way. I'm gonna see it one of these days.
Yeah,
I doubt if whatever sequences in that movie can top this one.
She's a fucking teenager, man.
Like,
God, it is,
to me,
fuck.
To me, what it seemed like too when I was watching that, I wasn't sure up until that point. I was like, this director has to be a woman, right?
No, it's a guy.
Yeah, I know it's a guy.
Yeah.
But, like, just in that sequence, like, the way he's able to just film that kind of pain, like, that kind of emotion from someone you can't speak. And, like, just the look on her face.
It speaks a lot to her performance, too, because, I mean, not to criticize, like, the director, but all he does is just put the camera there. And he directs the actors really fucking well throughout the movie to make sure that they're getting to where they need to be so that they can create this.
It's not even the action, though. It's that whole sequence, how when she approaches that old lady's apartment, the entire sequence is one take. It's a single take. And so going from her going to the stove and, trying to like heat these
Yeah.
instruments so they're sanitized and going to the bathroom and putting her in stirrups made out of a clothesline and going back to the kitchen, grabbing the stuff, going back and like the way the camera kind of like tiptoes in the room and then comes out and like goes again. And you kind of like almost forget because you've been watching it for like about an hour and a half at this point that like, oh yeah, this film really, really likes these long takes. Where
Most every scene pretty much is a long take.
almost every scene, and literally every scene, not almost every scene,
Yeah,
and
like they're at least more than a minute, I'd say.
no, yeah, for sure.
Like the shortest one is probably a minute or so.
The shortest one's probably like 3 minutes. Like they are very long.
Now, the first shot at the bus station couldn't have been like more than
No, that one's
a minute
long.
and a half or 2 minutes.
That one's pretty long though.
Just at the bus? Yeah, no, it's fairly long, but I don't know.
Like
it
probably
didn't-
the shortest. I want to say the shortest take of the movie is when Sergei finds the wallet with all the money on the train. But you get this. The abortion sequence is like 8 minutes, 7 minutes. Like it's enough.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's
a long,
enough,
long
and
time.
like that's not even counting the actual procedure itself, which I don't know how they did it. Like it's one of those. It's one of those that had to have happened type of sequences.
The fucking scissors, man. Jesus Christ.
Like I don't.
Ugh.
I can't imagine anyone, regardless of how much they're like just a dick or chauvinist or a gorehound or anything, watching that moment and not like covering their mouth or screaming or like looking away or something. Like I was very uncomfortable, and movies don't make me that way. Not even horror films. Like if I'm watching something scary, I'm like fucking jump scare, I hate you, and I'll laugh out about it afterwards.
Yeah.
But this was, I'd never
It was
I'd never
so
seen something
unnerving.
like it ever.
Yeah. I mean, I saw The Fly somewhat recently, like and hey, there's some sick shit in there, but
Sorta.
it's entertainment. I saw Raw, which is a great movie that reportedly made people faint, and there's definitely some pretty messed up stuff in there. That is nothing compared to this. It is nothing. Oh my god, that fucking abortion scene, and we still have more to talk about.
I like that.
We still have more to talk about.
I love the ending. It's like that's what's funny. It's like before that abortion happens, you see like old dudes getting mugged and like beat senseless, and they steal all this food and get drunk and have like a little like kegger. Like you see the train stuff. Like you see them in classrooms and like robbing their like their classmates and stuff. Like you see stuff that is like not cool. Like on top of, as we've already mentioned, like the prostitution that's going on. But you don't really see anything there. Like that sex, it's almost comical when she's getting fucked up against the glass and she's like smiling down at the dude. Like it's kind of funny, like when the first death in the movie, when the guy gets run over by the truck.
I gotta mention, like, just that situation. It's like it is scary, and it feels like even that one seems scary real. Like
I didn't believe that one because I live in a port city and I've seen enough big wheelers.
When he's under it, that one I did question that, but I was thinking the situation.
Laying,
it's like, wow, you're deaf and you can't hear, and you would not catch on to that. I like the circumstances of that. That's what got to me.
Like I said, maybe the circumstance, but I know for a fact
Yeah.
if I was laying perfectly still under a big 18-wheeler, that I would be perfectly fine. If in the Fast and the Furious
he
you could
barely
drive
slid
cars
under that,
under him, like he would be fine.
Well, keep in mind, these are deaf actors; they're not stunt actors, so I can forgive that. But yeah, the circumstances of that are pretty messed up.
It's just messed up. Like that's the first notion that you get, where as a deaf person, you really need like a community. You need a tribe, as the film's called. Like you need people to look out for you. Like you need someone to watch your back, especially in a gang. And it all comes full circle when it's like, I wonder how helpless deaf people are when they're sleeping.
Oh my god!
First, you can rape someone's roommate, and no one will know. It's like,
yeah, no. That like I was thinking about that during that scene. Like, she did point out, like, hey, no, my roommate's right there. Doesn't matter. She doesn't hear. And it's like, wow, that is very true.
Very true. It's like I love how there's a meet cute in this movie when the dick guy, the squirrely guy that I like that moves real fast, pushes Sergei into their room and they're naked and he's trying to get out and he won't let him out. Like that was their first meeting. His first meeting was seeing her naked. And right then, immediately, he was already objectifying her. He was already seeing her as a piece of meat. Then he starts like, being not exactly her pimp, but like her escort during the prostitution scenes. And then he still develops feelings for her.
Yeah, I gotta
Like,
say, I do love that. Like when she sees her sucking off a guy, he throws up immediately after the sight of that.
yeah,
Granted, he chugged down some hard liquor, but
yeah, he chugged
it's
all
a
that
nice
vodka.
comical touch
But
that
yeah,
you
even
don't
still.
get that much humor from this movie.
I wouldn't even say that barf scene is humor. I don't think there's any
I found it
humor
funny.
here. It's like
Like just like he sees something he obviously did not want to see, and then just throws up after that. I found that slightly amusing.
a little bit, but even still, like I said, I can't think of anything in this movie that's funny. Like like you have whimsical moments where like they're kind of having a good time, and you're kind of having a good time because they are too. Like for instance, when the Italian dude comes and they set up whatever kind of deal they have to leave the country, and they're like
Yeah,
wearing the t-shirts
they
and
were
they're eating
clearly
the
very
food.
happy, and like
Like
yeah, that was the one where you're just like, what's going on here? But then there's Italian T-shirts, like okay, someone's showing like a trip that they had in Italy on a laptop or
yeah,
something. Okay, but then there's the there's the line to get the passports and get visas, and then you see where it's going.
he's like, hey, I know you got these girls that are deaf, so like they're the perfect whores because like they'll never say no because they can't say no, and guys probably love that. Plus they're young. Like let's bring them to Italy. People love girls like these in Italy. Let's go. Like who cares? It doesn't matter. Like the conversations don't matter. Like you don't have to know sign language. Better yet, you probably don't. And it's sad because I wish I do, because I signed up for a class in high school and I was declined admission. They're like, no, your grade point average is too low. You can't take the sign language class. I was like,
That's too bad.
cool. Like we've kind of like talked about it. Like you don't see many deaf people or mute people. It just doesn't happen.
No.
I have, and every time I ever have, for the most part, like, okay, last week someone came into work with his dad, and he was signing to his dad. Like, I'd seen that at work once or twice, especially when I worked at a movie theater, like, when someone asked for, like, the assistive hearing devices and stuff like that. However, like, I think the one only true time, like, the real times I've ever encountered deaf or mute people have been on public transportation. If you take the Blue Line or you take like a metro in LA, you usually meet someone, generally Hispanic, who has a sign that's like, oh, I can't speak, like I'm deaf, and they like sell stickers or whatever for $1. Like that's commonplace. That's happened to me like several times in my life, either at a mall or on the bus or whatever. But the one time, it's still like the only interaction I've ever had with some hearing impaired people. I was on the bus leaving our college campus, going home, and there was a group, I think it was either 3 or 4, sitting on the bus together, and they all had sidekick phones. And they had like a group message, and they were just typing to each other, like laughing at what they were saying, like not laughing, but like, miming a laugh. And it was awesome. Like if I had a phone with a good camera back then, I would have been like sign, can I take a picture or something like
Yeah.
that. Just like seeing that moment though, it's just something kind of like this movie that I'll never forget because I've never seen something like it before. And I doubt I'll probably see it again. Like it's just so uncommon. Like maybe if you're in like a larger metropolitan area, like if you're in New York City or you're in LA or London or Tokyo, like talking about Tokyo, like Babel, okay, like the girl in Babel, that's like one of the only other times I can think of, or like the Who musical Tommy, okay, and that's like sort of not really.
I don't. You know more about that. I have no idea how that.
It's a
ties
rock
into it.
opera about a deaf dumb blind kid who sure plays
Yeah.
mean pinball. Yeah,
Hmm.
interesting movie. You got to see it one of these days, preferably on a big screen. But yeah, how fucked up Sergei's life gets, how much all the people that he's come close with just dick him and kick him out of the group because only because he made one mistake. He tried to keep one of the whores for himself, and how he gets that revenge. How sweet it is.
Yeah,
I
we've been
was
skating around for it for
I
a
was
while.
so happy for him.
I don't know about happy. I mean,
No, when
I'm
he
worried about him
no
after that.
when
But
he walked
I
in
felt
that
like I
room,
was an accessory to murder watching
when
that. I
he
mean,
walked in
you
that
talk about the
room,
aesthetic, and it's just
he
like
got away clean. He's gone. No one's gonna
still
catch
like
him.
it's like oh yeah, I'm sure like especially with all the illegal shit that they're doing, it's like
Yeah,
who's gonna talk to the cops? But holy fuck, of all the I don't know how to rank some of the craziest on-screen deaths like ever. I don't even know where to start. this is like among like the top 5 most shocking screen deaths I've ever seen.
That wasn't shocking.
Like
for
of
me.
multiple deaths. Like, oh,
Not even.
this? Are you kidding me?
That
Like,
wasn't shocking.
you saw it coming, but
Yeah,
just
no,
the way what happens.
The way he
when
does it
slams
is
them
pretty
down.
cool. But
Yeah, and like just seeing like dead on the spot and they don't know it, and then the fucking person in the next bed over obviously can't hear what's going on. Like, so fucked up.
when he walked in that room, I literally like clenched my fists and like punched the air, hoping like that he was gonna kick their ass. But the fact that he killed them, I was even more overjoyed. Just for this roller coaster that you go on with him, how much turmoil you're subjected to. The fact that like we were saying, he might not be a pushover, he might not be shy, but it seems like he's sheltered. Just before he's initialized, like he might be able to fight or whatever, he might be strong, but you said maybe he threw up because he saw the girl he likes like sucking some other dude off.
Well, it was humorous. He also chugged a lot of liquor.
I think
at
he
that
threw up
point,
because
so.
he never had alcohol before. Like
Yeah, no,
like,
I think that's it. It's comedic timing for the narrative that he does
see,
it
like,
right when he sees that.
one of his first exposures with sex, with booze, definitely with gang violence, like almost everything you see here that he goes through is his first experience. Like he doesn't seem like a bad kid, like he became a bad kid. And then the fact that he's thrown out of the bad kids group and now he doesn't know how to go back to being pure of heart. Like City of God. Like kind of similar, like a gang of kids, like it's subject matter that's not too uncommon. It's just when it's also a coming of age movie, when he is learning about life and he's been put on the wrong side of the tracks. Like, no, he was already basically killing people. He was killing himself. That I'm happy he killed those fuckers. They're making the world a bad place.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. It's just I still, when you see an ending like that, it's more like I'm not so sure that it's a happy ending for him. I think that there's a new monster that's out there that he's not gonna be. It's not like he can go back now. He's not any better than they were, and he's probably gonna be
I think
just
he's
as bad or hell
no,
even worse.
I think
over
he's
time.
better than they are. Like it was insinuated that he was leaving the school altogether. He's going back into the world, and I don't think he's gonna be a monster. Like he's definitely been fucked up. Like that's without a doubt. Like he's not pure anymore.
You could always go back, but I mean, just wow. After that, like when you take character out of it, though, I mean, just holy fuck, watching that, it was insane. Man.
It was awesome.
It was uncomfortable to watch for me.
I wasn't
because it was just like it felt way too real.
It was like 30 minutes after the abortion sequence that I was desensitized 100%. I couldn't be shocked.
The impact of that felt too real. Where I'm just like, okay,
I knew it was fake.
Maybe
It was
they
a movie.
constructed dummies or something, but I'm just like,
no. What are you talking about? There was nothing in that chest, and that was all Foley work. That thing weighed like a pound. I bet you it was made out of balsa wood. That's why one of them broke.
Well, the way that they react, though, just with blood popping out just on the spot, how did they do that?
They were probably having some kind of packet under their head, and when they got hit by this thing that weighed no weight at all, they pressed their head down to squirt blood.
I'd have to watch it closely, but just in the moment, it was really shocking when that happened. That just to see it go like that, and then to see those bodies just
it didn't trick me because
like that.
I've been hit in the head by a baseball bat. Okay, I know what something can do to a head when it doesn't weigh as much as that thing did. Their heads would have caved in.
Yeah, there's a lot to process in that moment, though, like, because there was shock for me watching that, where it's just like, wait, he just fucking killed them on the spot, just like that. This isn't like an action movie where it's like, bang, you're dead. It was like, no, this was literally like witnessing a full-on murder, and it was scary watching it. It felt really uncomfortable for me.
I've seen enough snuff material on 4chan that I
avoid stuff like that. Even
real
shit
death,
like on YouTube of ISIS cutting heads off.
Like,
it's like, no, I don't want to watch
even
that shit.
Real death isn't even that scary anymore to me. Like Faces of Death, like growing up watching that kind of shit, watching the car crashes and people go out of windshields and catching on fire and dogs getting thrown off of buildings. Like all the kinds of shit that these kids...
I don't ever want to be desensitized to that ever. Like I try to avoid that like as best as I can. I've had that situation where roommates pull up a video on YouTube and they're just kind of like, oh, that's fucked up.
If
like,
it's on YouTube,
oh, that's
it can't
so
be
sick when
fucked up.
someone's cutting off a torso with a chainsaw, like, and it's like Al Qaeda or something, and I'm just like, they're going like, oh, that's so sick, that's awesome. I'm just like, what the fuck is the matter with you? Why would you watch this? This is way too messed up.
How much different is it than, like Call of Duty or, Power Rangers or whatever?
When it's for entertainment value, that's one thing. But I mean,
not,
it's like even when you're watching the
How's
Twin Towers fall on the news, it's the same kind of shock that you're getting there. Where that's not a special effect; that's a real building falling down.
Call of Duty is millions of people every second out the day using gun violence for sport.
Yeah, but it's not real.
It's worse than real. When it's real, there's stakes involved, and you have to think about what you're doing, and it matters. When it's for entertainment purposes, you're getting enjoyment out of killing people. It might not be a real person. It's worse than a real person.
But there's still something about it. It doesn't feel raw like entertainment. There's a soundtrack there and everything.
Not really.
There's stuff to There's stuff to make it feel like an action movie. When you watch it like this, it's all very aesthetics play a very minimal part, and it's just presenting the situation as is. There's no, you're watching it from the distance. It's a shot from far back where you just see Sergei going up and just bashing them in the head, and you're standing way back and you're just seeing the entire room. There's no close-up shot getting you an intimate first look of how he's feeling, if he's in full rage or if he's taking pleasure in it, and you don't
saw a fly
see the full bloody impact.
Vomit on some dude's hand and foot.
Yeah,
and
that's
laugh
entertainment.
About it.
Yeah, but no,
this is entertainment
I
too.
was shocked in that moment, but in a different way, where I was just like, oh man, in The Fly, it was awesome. This was like, wow, this really made me feel uneasy watching this.
This is what happens when you push someone too far. He wasn't trying to...
Yeah, for narrative circumstances, I'm just saying, though, the way it's presented, and it's it was uneasy to watch that moment.
It wasn't.
It was perfectly executed, but it was a tough thing to absorb.
They set this world up so well for about 2 hours before you get to that point, between the abortion and the prostitution and just the violence altogether, that it was just the obvious culmination of everything. When you've done all of these fucked up things, eventually you're going to kill someone. Coming back to Mean Streets, there's no deaths in that movie until the end. Until what's-his-name pulls out the gun, and he has to shoot these people. And it's he warned them throughout the movie, what, you think you kids are having fun, that you're gangsters? That you're part of La Familia, that you're going around betting and taking bribes and shit.
Yeah, no, it's
this is what
shit
happens.
Comes back with you.
Yeah, this is what happens, and this film's no different. It's the same feeling I got. It was just, what do you think's gonna happen to these kind of people when they act like they're the toughest people on the planet when they're deaf?
There's also that bullying aspect that's definitely present here, where it kind of ends for Sergei a little quick. But yeah, these guys are total bullies to the extreme. But when you push someone for so long, eventually they have to push back. He just bottles up so much rage that it's just gonna fucking explode at some point. And that explosion, it was very I'm not gonna say beautiful, but it was very, very believable and effective, and when it happened, I totally bought into it, and it made me feel uneasy watching it. It did disturb me, but that's not I'm saying that it's a bad thing. It was just based on how this movie presented it, it managed to, it's not this definitely was not one trick where it had its peak midway through. It's no, this ended with a full-on bang where,
yeah,
as uncomfortable as that abortion sequence is, no, it kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger as it went, all the way up to that. And then once it gets up to that, that's the final shot, that's the end of the movie. It just steadily built up to this one thing, and then bang, you get there. And it was brilliantly told that way.
It's weird. It's in a traditional sense, this is not a good movie. It's missing a lot of things, as I said multiple times during this review.
It's experimental, though.
It's experimental. It's just if you want to see a film, you want to see a movie, you're on Netflix, hey, it's 10 o'clock at night, I want to watch a movie to go to sleep with. This isn't that. This 100% is not that movie. You're not going to enjoy this film in the slightest.
You have to be awake for it.
It's really, really an experience, but it's an uncanny one. It's one that you're unlikely to have anywhere else. It is filmmaking, as you said, in the purest sense of the word. There's certain shots here, in particular when they're at the passport office, how they utilize the fact that there's been no dialogue, so they have to get creative with the camera to show the sequence involving characters that can speak without ruining that illusion of the deaf world, and how it just set up where you get the two windows. You have one on the left, one on the right, and you have the camera on the outside looking in. And you have this interpreter. You have the Italian dude who steps into one, he leaves, steps in the other, steps out in the first one, he goes back again, and then they come outside. And it doesn't break the shot, and it's still the real thing. And it does that, and then it just with the violence and with all the different things it does, where, you know, I said it during Victoria, I'm like, oh yeah, like this outdoes Birdman, or like, yeah, we said in our very first episode at Cinema during High Noon, like how that's just a special movie, and it still is because it's one of the only examples of story time equaling screen time, almost exactly. Except both of those and Birdman as well, it feels like a movie. Like, you know, it's not real. Like it seems made up. Like, you might suspend your disbelief further because of the long takes and the effects work being done, or just the reiteration through clocks or set pieces, or even in our episode for Rope, how they're able to do it during that time period of filmmaking also to make it seem like it's all happening at once, kind of like a play. But this is just way beyond that, like exponentially so, by virtue not just of the shot length, but how it's filmed and the characters.
Well, it's just in a world where, like, most people do not have, like, you know, they know it exists, but they have never had much exposure to it. Seriously, I can't think of another cinematic example where there is a movie about deaf characters. I mean, you know, Miracle Worker sure as shit is probably, like, it doesn't
like
count
I said,
in that, but it's probably the closest that you can get
Tommy's
to it.
a lot further than that, except it's still a rock opera, and so there's music, literal music being played throughout, and everyone that saw it was expecting that. But that's the only example I can think of where from beginning to end, well, almost beginning to end, you have someone who's, like, basically stoic. Like, I'm sure there's other examples out there, especially when you take in consideration silent filmmaking.
Yeah, no, there is
Like the
well,
artist
it's not
to
about
an
deaf.
extent. Like, you know.
Well, no, because there are title cards in the artist. But no, The Last Laugh, which is
I
an
tried to watch
W. Murnau
that.
flick.
Yeah, I couldn't.
It's a good movie.
Well, I'm
I liked
thinking.
it.
No, never mind. I'm thinking of The Man Who Laughs. Never mind.
The Last Laugh is it's about a bellhop who you know, loves his job, and then all of a sudden he loses it, and then just shit goes downhill for him, and it's all done without any title cards at all whatsoever. But even that movie at the time, it was a bit of an experiment because he was trying to see if he could do that without having to resort to title cards, and you could understand a movie visually. But this is a step further in that these are expressions that were not. I mean, you know, we can all catch on to, like, what the context is while watching it, but it's just you know, there's things that are implied in The Last Laugh where, you know, it doesn't there are shot changes, you know, there are close-ups, and there are character points at something like a sign or something, and then you see a close-up of the sign and then someone else's reaction. It does play with editing. This movie doesn't really use editing except to stitch these scenes together.
There's no editing. Like, this is a camera, actors, and a director. I think that's why it's weird. It's just we're so used to the shot reverse shot. Like, you get the establishing shot, maybe a master, maybe a turnaround, and unless it's kind of like sold in a certain way, like Birdman or Victoria, like, oh, it's one take, guys, and then even still, you're like, no, they cheated there. They definitely cheated.
It's not like Too Late or Victoria where they move the camera and then it changes from, like, a close up and then pulls back and it becomes wide again or something.
But
like
it
that,
does
you know?
do that
it
a little bit, like.
Not so much.
Sort of like in particular with that sequence I was talking about at the passport office, it kind of, you know, frames the two windows, and
but there's still distance.
Yeah, but then the characters walk, the woodshop teacher and someone else walk in a frame, and it tracks with them. Then it pulls back and it shows them get in the van, and then it pans to the side and you see the van drive off. Like, there's clearly blocking done here, but I don't think there's, like, a real close-up in the movie at all. Like, after Sergei is left in the bathroom bleeding, you get that shot, like, from the back of his head walking to the dorm.
And it does move forward.
Yeah, it moves with him, but there's not, like, an actual close-up in this film, like, of someone's face or something, or of an object. It's always at a distance. Like, it maintains that you are just along for this ride, that you're watching it. That you're kind of just, you're not taking part like most films. Like when you're watching a traditional movie, you're not a character except you understand everything that's going on. Like you know who said what to whom, even in secret, like even the private conversations. Like you might get like even like in a murder mystery, you see the killer do what he did and then you learn who it was, you know? Like you're the only one privy to that intel. Versus in this, no, like everyone's always in the scene with someone. Like no, you're almost never alone with the character. And then even when you are, they're like looking over their shoulder, like you feel special to have witnessed what's going on.
I mean, that's part of like why it just feels like that final sequence is an accessory to murder, because you are hanging out with everybody, but then the one time that you're alone with Sergei, that's in that final shot where he's going around and killing everybody, and he's the only one awake that's around, and so are you as the spectator.
It's like,
and it's fucking unnerving.
have you seen?
Because it really feels like you're with him as it's happening.
Have you seen Gus Van Sant's Elephant?
Nope.
No. So it's basically his Columbine movie, and it follows two kids. And
I'm aware of what it is. Yeah.
So like the big part of the movie's not very good, but like the big scene in the movie is a continuous shot where the kids shoot up the school, and it has a similar effect as the final scene here. Where you feel like an accessory, like there's nothing you can do to stop it, just the way it's framed and everything, and it seems so real, like almost like it's a document of something that happened instead of being entertainment. I'm gonna buy this for $1 just because it just a super fascinating, unnerving cinematic experience, but I can't recommend people watch it. It's gonna ruin your day, probably. Like,
well, it's not like you talked about this not being, like a standard narrative. It's not. This is experimental filmmaking. It's you can
standard,
still.
No, it is a standard narrative.
Well, no. But I'm talking
movie.
about like as far as how it's presented in aesthetics. It's not in a way that we're used to where we're aware of just the basic narrative tools that usually go with movies. But this is like this is experimental, and it's telling a story in a different way that we're not used to. It's not like you can just turn this on and just relax a little bit. No, you got to like pay attention a little bit, stick with it, and really just try to figure out what it is that you're going to see. Like, right when I started this, even I was hesitant and worried for a second, because I knew that exactly right when that title card says, it's going to be silent, there's not going to be any dialogue, and that was a risk going in. So I was worried, like, fuck, are we both going to be on here and just talking about how this is an experiment that doesn't work, because it's not what I want to be doing. But it told a story in a way that we've never seen before, and I like seeing stuff like that, or like Victoria, or like Too Late, where it's just trying to really push the boundaries of filmmaking, because cinema's not dead. Like, that's bullshit. Even some of the bigger spectacles that are easier to embrace, something like Gravity, they can still find ways of just pushing it. Help Birdman, even in some ways I would argue The Revenant, even though that's a tougher argument to make with some people because they won't let you finish that sentence. But I like seeing stuff like this where it's told differently, and it's not necessarily like it's challenging. It's just there is a certain discipline, maybe because we're just so accustomed of seeing films stitched one way that it's easy to be polarized by something like this when you're watching it. So I mean, this is absolutely a buy. It's not like I'm going to tell everybody to see it, but hey, it's very much worth taking the risk with it if you're willing to.
See, I don't even want to claim this as an experimental film, because they don't do anything different here. They just film a world that for some reason we've never been given before. There's nothing different here. The difference...
But how do you know if what you're like, is there really confidence going into this, like that that this is going to turn out well, because you're working with primarily deaf actors? You have no idea if
it was a gamble,
your final product
for sure.
is going to translate. It's definitely a risk.
But I'm not going to call it experimental film. I really wish that title card in the beginning wasn't there, to be honest. That kind of ruins a lot of the surrealism that you witness, or the realism for that matter.
Yeah, definitely not surreal.
Yeah, like it shouldn't. Yeah, I don't like the title card at all. Like this is the kind of movie where it shouldn't even have a title sequence. It should just start, and then you get a closing credits.
Well, it's kind of the selling point, though. Like, right when this screened at Cannes, and I don't know, there were some Sundance screenings of this too. That's how I heard about it. But yeah, it was known as that very silent, deaf movie where there's no talking
Yeah,
whatsoever,
that's
and
an
it's
easy way to sell it in the same way that Victoria is a
yeah,
single
it's like
take.
when you're in the festival circuit, there's that one thing that differentiates your
Yeah,
movie that people are going to typecast it as.
but I don't. I'm not going to call this an experimental film. Like experimental film is like something like like a camera
Like
person to an extent.
I would say so. Like, I mean, it's easy that term gets pegged with something like surreal stuff from
Yeah,
Myra
or
Darren,
like
like and that's
Louis Benuel or like someone like
yeah,
that.
like, and that's not at all what I like to define it as.
Can't remember the name of the filmmaker, but she like when you take actual film stock and you like put like colorize it, like not colorize it, but like you put paint on it, and that way
Mhm.
like it's like art in motion or I don't know, like when it's more art instead of filmmaking, because I don't know, like the term experimental to me, especially even like a music sense or in any when it gets attached to any art form, it's like if you're a fan of this art form traditionally, you're probably not gonna like this because it's so different. It's such an experiment, kind of like
I think we can at least define this
Empire.
as art
Okay.
house,
Oh
right?
yeah, this is definitely art. Like
Yeah.
literally, one of the production companies is Art House. Like, like
Yeah.
this is art cinema without a doubt. But it's not experimental. Like this is if you know film grammar, you're not going to be at a loss for words here. It's just like I said. It's like we've said over and over and over again here. It took over 100 years, unless someone out there can find another example. Like maybe we do research, we could find it. But it took like over 100 years of filmmaking for someone to finally make a movie about deaf people. Like, why is that? It seems stupid, like that it would take that long.
Well, that's where it almost seems experimental because probably, the presumption is you look at the logistics of it and I'm sure that somebody may have wondered like, hey, how is this gonna work, especially if you do it with deaf actors?
Uh,
How do you present something like, could you do it traditionally? Like, for some reason, I think
you can't.
if you did it with like all the shots and the cutaways and with some editing to it,
It
I would
wouldn't work.
imagine that would be far more difficult and far more annoying, and just you would get lost easily because you have to let things
Yeah.
play out naturally in this case.
You
And
wouldn't be able to match cut the sign language for one thing.
yeah,
Because
it
you
would
wouldn't be able to
be
do it the same way in the same way that you can do dialogue. Dialogue is easy, like you can do it over and over
it's
again.
really
It can be the
difficult to imagine,
same
yeah.
20 times in a row. But yeah, someone's hands, like they're gonna do something differently. And especially with the assumption that most viewers do not know sign language, especially Ukrainian sign, that you don't need to know what they're indicating here. You just have to, watch their body language, their
Yeah, it's
gestures.
all in the performance. Like, I would imagine that, I can't imagine that the script was like, oh, hey, here's this piece of dialogue. It might be something similar to the mumblecore approach, in that here's the scene, here's the context, here's what has to happen. You know what your character's going through, you know what they're thinking. Let it play out. And, maybe there may have been some sign improv on the set because it feels really real when it's
It
happening.
had to be mumblecore. Like maybe they blocked the camera work, yeah. But I can't imagine they were like, okay, so you're gonna rob this guy and you're gonna say no, I don't want to do it, and then you have to say this, because how do you even rehearse when you don't have actual dialogue? Like you're signing, like how do you rehearse that? Like
Not only that, you're also hearing the sounds that they make
yeah,
as well. Like, whether it's heavy breathing, just reacting to a hit or something, like you could hear the frustration or just the panic when it's happening on screen, and they're able to emote that. It is scary how effective it is.
thanks for listening. We hope it's been a pleasure. If you like this show and you want to hear more of our wonderful voices on a weekly basis, check out 2 Cents. I'll recap what's happened in film, TV, and tech news.
We're also on the titular Dollar Review Show, a spoiler-free critique of new releases or anything we've discovered on our own, whether that be TV, music, etc.
You can find all of our content at dollarreviews.net. Follow us on Twitter or like us on Facebook at Dollar Reviews.
And we're also on Google Play Music, iTunes, Pocket Cast, TuneIn, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, just about anywhere on the internet, with hours of content available to you for free. But for those of you that feel that the show is worth your dollar, you can send us a donation at patreon.com/dollarreviews. Contributions not only earn our undying love, but they also make it possible for us to improve our recording equipment and to give you the highest quality episodes possible. But more importantly, they'd be helping us acquire the content to review. You know, trips to the multiplex are expensive, and the more donations we receive, the more films we can review for your listening pleasure.
If you listen somewhere we're currently not available, you'd like to contribute some talking points, send a Death to Cinema request, or if you just want to laugh at us, you can do so by reaching out to us on social media or send an email to brian@dollarreviews.net.
Or you can email me as well, steve@dollarreviews.net.
You can follow me personally on Twitter at Brian Gillis, that's BRYONGILLIS, and now you know how to spell the email too, and also under the same name on the lovely site Letterboxd, which acts as my film diary, where I rate films I'm watching, write the occasional review, and even sometimes compile lists.
You can also find me on Twitter at S_MTX, and also follow my film diary at Letterboxd under the same name, where I log everything I watch, and sometimes write brief reviews.
That's it for this week. Until next time, keep the change.